Greetings, my fellow from Love Solid Thinkers. This is LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Monday, February 20th, 2017. Yes, I was like wish my brother Tom. Happy birthday, my friend Sean, as well. And Kurt Cobain would have been 50 years old today. From Nirvana. May it still be forever free. And I still, was really critical on his death in the past. But now I learned a lot more. Like I talked about this before a while back about Soak and Bleach and, of course, Kurt and Courtney. Now I have a different perspective. I don't go around going criticizing him because it's a lot more than what it is. So what it was. And I still believe to this day, this case, his death, the case, must be reopened. That's how far I have to go with that. So, I was browsing through a couple of articles and see what I'm looking for here. And I said, what the hell? Let me just take, probably it may not be too long. But, I was got this one here from one site. I got from the Most Important News, which is by Michael Snyder. Actually, it originally came from WorldNet Daily. And it's actually an exclusive by Garth Kant. And it says, it's entitled here, Now Democrats Call Obama's Shadow Government the Devil. And very interesting. So, I'm going to read on here and give you my statement. It says here, first, the Democrats got clobbered in the election by the Republicans. Now they're squaring off each other in a civil war. The political Gettysburg pits the Democratic Party based against Obama machine, calling Organizing for Action, or OFA, the community organizing army left over from the former president's election campaigns. How bitter is the battle? The two Democratic operatives recently called OFA the devil. But when former President Obama issued a call to arms to his OFA troops in order to protect his legacy, particularly Obamacare, Stephen Handwerk, executive director of the Louisiana Democratic Party, wrote in a private email to fellow party leaders, "This is some grade A bull crap right here." He added, "It also, to me, seems tone deaf. We have lost over 1,000 seats in the past 8 years. All because of this crap." The email was obtained and then published Friday by the Daily Beast, which reported, "It is difficult to overstate how enraged the state Democratic activists and leaders are with Organizing for Action. How powerful is OFA? Just a week ago, WND's former Washington bureau chief Paul Sperry portrayed OFA in the New York Post as an army gearing up for battle. With a growing war chest and more than 250 offices across the country, manned by 32,525 volunteers nationwide, run by old Obama aides and campaign workers armed with this 2012 campaign database." Sperry called it Obama's army of agitators, numbering more than 30,000 who will fight his Republican successor at every turn of his historic presidency. And Obama will command them from a bunker less than 2 miles from the White House. Sperry warned Obama would be working behind the scenes to set up what will effectively be a shadow government, not to only protect his threatening legacy, but to sabotage the incoming administration, and that it's drawing battle lines on immigration, Obamacare, race relations, and climate change. Obama may have an army, but who will they follow? I love and adore everything about President Obama except for OFA, said South Carolina Democratic Party Chairman Jamie Harrison, according to the Washington Post. He was just one of numerous Democratic Party leaders who have insisted their beef is with OFA and not Obama. But OFA is Obama, the way Sperry describes it. He is their supreme leader, and running OFA is his new job. The former president, who would be shadow president. Obama will be overseeing it all from the shadow White House located within 2 miles of Trump, wrote Sperry. It featured a mansion which he is fortifying with construction of a tall brick perimeter and nearby taxpayer-funded office with his own chief of staff and press secretary. So what happening? What happened? Well, Obama tools OFA to become a potent threat to Trump. Why do Democratic leaders feel threatened by OFA? How did their common desire go to war with the Trump administration turn to a fratricidal battle royal for control of the party? It appears to have been a battle long brewing beneath the surface that is now emerging in public view. With all due respect to President Obama, the OFA created as a shadow party because Obama's operatives had no faith in the state parties. So I hope the OFA role is done. I hope OFA closes their doors and allows the country to state parties to get to the hard work of rebuilding the party at the local and grassroots level, Nebraska Democratic Party Chair Jane Klebb told Politico. She further explained why it has not, on the whole, been a winning strategy. OFA had no faith or confidence in the state party, so they created a whole separate organization. They took money away from and centralized it in D.C. They gave us a great present for 8 years, but we lost everywhere else. If we're having a conversation about state parties, I would say OFA hurt state parties boldly. Handwork told the Daily Beast, elaborating on his leaked email. They certainly had an undercutting effort, and there's a lot of work state parties do that isn't very sexy. And that becomes incredibly difficult when budgets are cut in half because people are trying to curry favor with the president and his allies. Compounded what Politico called a period in which the party suffered tremendous losses at the state and local levels. Since Obama won in 2008 was what it described as a degree of mistrust, rooted in the idea that OFA was always primarily interested in advancing the president's political interest, often at the expense of the party. And now that the OFA wants to take the lead in rebuilding the party is fighting back. Democratic leaders see it as a matter of self-preservation and survival. OFA created a shadow organization that was recruiting the same volunteers as the Democratic National Committee, using resources from a very limited number of donors, and therefore as it resulted in it weakened the DNC and the impact of the DNC and state parties could have political during his tenure. South Carolina Democratic Party Chairman Jamie Harrison told Politico. He added, you've got 5 organizations knocking on the same door with 5 different messages. That's not conducive. In the age of Trump, we need to be lean, mean, strategic machine. Another key problem seemed to be the perception that OFA wasn't about the party. It was all about Obama. We've seen over the last 8 years as a deterioration of permanent state infrastructure, a Democratic operative anonymously confided to the Daily Beast. And he explained OFA built an alternative infrastructure that was very top-down. OFA's actions were wasteful, duplicative, and it made no sense. There were these tensions on the ground that we saw that all over the country. Local officials felt tossed aside. A lot of these red states were abandoned. The OFA model was never a 50-state strategy. It was about the president's agenda. So, interesting there to talk about centralization, correct? That revelation may be clear now to party leaders, but former Representative Michelle Bachmann mused, I wonder if rank and file Democrats understand Obama was about advancing his personal agenda through his OFA community organization. That Democratic operative's reaction to seeing OFA trying to get back in the game, it's like seeing an ex-girlfriend show up. On top of the explicit animosity toward OFA and the implicit resentment of Obama, is a legacy party must now face. The former president doesn't get Democrats elected; he gets them defeated. Obama's coattails were strongest before he became president, sweeping into office with majorities in the House and the Senate, allowing to push through Obamacare without a single Republican vote. Democrats have been losing power in elections at an astonishing rate ever since. Bachman told WND, next to Jimmy Carter, Obama single-handedly did more to destroy the Democratic Party than the GOP could have ever hoped or planned. Well, like I say, she's right on that, even though I can't stand that woman. I say that respectfully. Under Obama's reign, Democrats lost a net total of 1,042 state and federal posts, including congressional and state legislative seats, governorships, and ultimately the presidency. By the time the 2014 midterm elections rolled around, as WND reported, Democrats were running away from Obama. The only Democratic senator running for re-election wanted Obama to appear with him on the campaign trail in 2014. And even at that, candidate Gary Peters less than enthusiastically observed, "The president will come to Michigan to campaign, and I'm going to stand next to the president." But Democrats didn't shun Obama on the campaign trail; they actually campaigned against him. That was illustrated by campaign quotes from desperate Democratic candidates in the key races that caused the party to lose control of the Senate. Democratic candidate for Senate Allison Lugaran Grimes declared in an ad, "I'm not Barack Obama. I disagree with him on guns, coal, and the EPA." The Democrat refused to say during an interview whether she's even voted for Obama in 2012, calling her constitutional right to stay mum. Let me tell you, the White House, when they look down in the front lawn, the last person they want to see is coming me, warned Democratic Senator Mark Goodall of Colorado during a debate. Senator Mark Begich, the Democratic incumbent from Alaska, insisted he took on Obama to fight for oil drilling in Alaska and would bang him over the head a few times on the need to drill. Democratic incumbent Senator Mark Pryor of Arkansas paused during his debate before making his closing statement to make sure everyone knew, "I voted against every budget that President Obama has offered." Democratic Senator Mary LaDreau made a point of emphasizing during her debate, "I do not agree with the president on his energy policies," later adding, "I haven't agreed with President Obama on everything." She also damned the president with faint praise, giving his job performance 6 to 7 out of 10. When asked on MSNBC if she thought the president had shown strong leadership, Democratic Senator Kay Hagan of North Carolina hedged a bit before conceding, "Certainly there are issues I think on, no." During her debate in New Hampshire, Democratic Senator Jeannie Shaheen was asked if she approved of Obama's job performance, yes or no. The incumbent evoked a wave of laughter from the audience when she responded instead, "In some things I approve, and in some things I don't approve." The former president's campaign guru, David Axelrod, told MSNBC Meet the Press it was a mistake for Obama to claim his policies were on the ballot. "I think Obama being so unpopular is the biggest factor in this election," predicted Tom Jensen, a Democratic pollster with the firm Public Policy Polling. "And I think at the end of the day, it may be too much for a lot of the Democratic Senate candidates to overcome." He was right. Now, in disastrous aftermath, Obama is calling upon Democrats to regroup and unite behind OFA. But judging by the initial reaction of party leaders, he may be trying to lead an army of rebels. There was some claims on that, and I remember even Lisa Haven addressed it on her show. Some people say it's doubtful and all that. But we all know one thing about former President Barack Hussein Obama. He is nothing more than a puppet to the One World Order. It's so obvious. Plus, his track record as a senator and a legislator in Illinois was not constitutionally friendly. He tried to bring that as the president. He made all these great promises where everyone manifested and fomented their mouth because they're so angry at Bush. And look what happened. More things change and more things the same, right? Some of the stuff I do have to say, both parties, the Democrats and Republicans, are in extreme turmoil. All their years of selling their asses to the banksters, the order, or anyone else they try to get their influences from, rather than from the American people themselves. It's backfiring. It's hard for you to get away with a lot more on your actions as elected servants. To be on this whole scenario, now the same clowns who were Obama supporters, now they're all going after Trump, which is totally acidine and hypocritical. I read these stupid memes and so forth on Facebook. I watch these pathetic interviews. They're just blowing smoke up your rear ends. You know who they are. I don't have to waste my energy on announcing names. And furthermore, with the fascistic healthcare, that's what it was. Let's talk about getting rid of it. There's been even Natural News did a report a while back on the IRS is not going to enforce it. The item line 61. You can look that up. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still being told what to do. Pulling down his pants for the oligarchs, allegedly, symbolically speaking. If that does happen, I'll guarantee you one thing: it will blow back in his face, including his cronies, when least expect it. I guarantee you that. The ones who could be blamed will be themselves. So, how I see the whole OFA? Yeah, another deceptive entity organizing for action. Woo! How impressive. Dumbed down, stagnant, and have a control fetish. Enough of that said. So, Garth Kant, thank you for that report. And next, this came out here today from the Free Thought Project. Spain sets massive president, charges its central bankers in court. This is by Claire Burnish. First Iceland, now Spain has taken on the bankers responsible for financial calamity, as the country's highest national court charged the former head of Spain's central bank and market regulator and 5 other banking officials over a failed bank, leading to the loss of millions of euros for smaller investors. This, of course, markedly departs from the mammoth taxpayer giveaway, commonly referred to as the bailout, approved by the U.S. government ostensibly to save the big banks and, unstated, allow the enormous institutions to continue biking customers without the slightest fear of penalty. Errant bankers and financiers, it would seem, typically manage to either evade actual being charged or escape hefty fines and time behind bars. Spain's Supreme Court last year ruled serious inaccuracies in information about listing-led investors to Bankia in error. Thus, the bank has since paid out millions of euros in compensation. But Spanish authorities could not abide the telling findings of years-long investigations into the failed listing, as Wolf Street explains. As part of the epic multi-year criminal investigation to the doomed IPO of Spain's Frankenbank Bankia, which had been assembled from the festering corpses of 7 deadly defunct saving banks. Spain's National Court called to testify 6 current and former directors of the Bank of Spain, including its former governor, Miguel Angel Fernandez Ordonez, and its former deputy governor and current head of the Bank of International Settlements Financial Stability Institute, Fernando Restoy. It also summoned for questioning Julio Segura, the former president of Spain's financial market regulators, the SMV, National Securities Market Commission, the Spain equivalent of the ISC in the U.S. The 6 central bankers and 1 financial regulators stand accused of authorizing the staunch public launch of Bankia in 2011, despite repeated warnings of the Bank of Spain's own team of inspectors that the banking group was unviable. As AFP reports, the National Court validated conclusions made by prosecutors who concluded that when an unviable entity has been listed on the stock market, its administrator or auditor should not shoulder all the responsibility. Specifics of the charge have not yet been made apparent, but as Economist reports. 1943, the Saturday Evening Post publishes the first Norman Rockwell's 4 Freedoms in support of Roosevelt, 1941 State Union Address. Mercury program, while aboard Friendship 7, John Glenn becomes the first American to orbit the Earth, making 3 orbits in 4 hours and 55 minutes. Hey, how cute. I'll continue on here. The court is questioning why they allowed Bankia to sell shares in initial public offering in 2011, less than a year before Bankia's portfolio of bad mortgage loans forced the government to seize control of it. It said there was evidence of regulators had full and thorough knowledge of Bankia's plight after its nationalization. It went on to report a 19.2 billion euros to just $24.7 billion loss for 2012, the largest in Spanish corporate history. Internal emails, documents play a crucial role in ultimately bringing the central banking officials to task for the failure of Bankia. Inspectors bringing issues to the attention of superiors were allegedly ignored. One email cited by The Economist claimed from an inspector who warned Bankia was a money-losing machine for which an IPO would not solve. Another report deemed devastated by the court saw an inspector advise Bankia to seek a private buyer rather than proceed with the listing, as the inquiry into participation of the players, such as officials in the central bank, was also urged by the National Court. As The Economist points out, Spanish judges are generally reluctant to sentence first-time financial criminals to prison. Through 5 Novicia and Exilia executives had 5-year suspended sentences levied for embezzlement in 2015, abruptly enforced in January. Meanwhile, taxpayers in the United States have yet to see big bankers criminally responsible for the financial ruin of so many Americans brought to an semblance of justice for their wrongdoing. Well. There's another step. And you know what? I say if they got the merit, burn their behinds. Big time. It's one thing, my friend, you always got to look at this whole thing about central banking. Supposed to be part of the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx's legacy, I would say, philosophy. And all those folks say it's capitalism. Bah, you're wrong. I called out somebody at an Occupy meeting in Fort Lauderdale. We're at the Wells Fargo building. You talk about the foreclosures. This is what capitalism is all about. I go, wrong, but he's corporatists and fascists. Get your facts straight, please. He ignored me big time. So I think it'll be a good move for Spain to keep that going, all right? I hope and make sure justice will prevail for the Spaniards out there, my fellow brothers and sisters. Spread the word, my friends. Hell can break loose over there and hope and make sure justice will prevail. All right. I'll be back. Chill. Yeah, I'm just going to add one more thing to that. In the United States, there's a thing called Article 1, Section 10. Each state has the right to produce their own money. It has to be gold and silver coins for credit and all that good stuff. So right there, that could be resolved. And Utah and Arizona has bills on the floor doing that. And every state in America can do this. The United States can do the same thing. That's the way we get to demonopolize the Federal Reserve. All right, next one here. Came from one moment. Yeah, one moment here. I got my dog roaming around. All right, this next one came from Daily Mail UK. And it says here, I know David, I talked about this for a good 2 decades. It says here, Sir Edward Heath, accusers, also claim parents ran a satanic sex cult. It says here, they say that the cult regularly slaughtered children as ritual sacrifices in church. The woman claimed that the former prime minister was part of the pedophile ring. If the allegations are true, it would make the cult the worst child murderers in British history. This is from Rebecca Camber. It was updated today. And it says here, a group of women who say Sir Edward Heath abused them as children have also accused their parents of being involved in up to 16 murders. The farce came as police probe incredible claims that the former prime minister was linked to a pedophile ring that called as many as 16 children, which would make them the worst child murderers in British history. The seemingly far-fetched allegations have been made by a family who alleged that the politician was part of a satanic cult run by their own parents. A group of women who say Sir Edward Heath abused them as children have also accused their parents of being involved in up to 16 murders. Police are probing incredible claims that the former prime minister was linked to a pedophile ring that killed as many as 16 children. They say hold on here. Sorry about that. My dog's roaming around sniffing food. Usual. Big baby that he is. That's okay. I'm not mad. All right. It says here, they say that the cult regularly slaughtered children as ritual sacrifices in churches and forests around southern England. They also participate in ceremonies in Africa. They claim that their mother and father, who said to have their own former conservative leader responsible for slaughtering children from babies to teenagers, yet they evaded justice. The pedophile ring, which they say Sir Edward was part of, stabbed, tortured, and maimed youngsters in churches and burnt babies in satanic orgies before men, women, and children gorged themselves on blood and body parts, police have been told. But there is no suggestion that Sir Edward killed any children himself in the women's accounts. If the bizarre allegations were to be proved, the parents who allegedly led the killings would be responsible for murdering more children than Fred and Rose West. They would also be on a par with Thomas Hamilton, who shot dead 16 children in the 1996 Dunblane school massacre. The women's lurid claims were dismissed by police in 1989 when they came forward. Sir Edward's name was never mentioned to the police at the time. It was only last year that he was named for the first time after one of the claimants said she had remembered a man called Ed was a prime mover in the network of pedophile abusers. Wiltshire police have spent more than a year investigating the allegations as part of an inquiry that has cost taxpayers over £883,000, £883,431, and irreversibly tarnished the reputation of an unmarried politician who died in 2005 at age 89. Last night, Sir Edward's grandson, Lincoln Siegelman, said, "I understand that these claims from the 1980s were at the time dismissed as complete fantasy by police. It is disappointing that these wild allegations have been reheated and randomly attached to Edward Heath's name." A Wiltshire police spokesman said, "We are not prepared to discuss this as an ongoing investigation." Godson hits out a chief's claim. The godson, Sir Edward Heath, reacted angrily yesterday after it was claimed that the police chief is 120% sure that the child abuse allegations against the former prime minister are genuine. Wiltshire Chief Constable Mike Veal was reported to believe child abuse allegations against the late politician, which include lurid tales of satanic child slaughter, are totally convincing. Mr. Veal, whose force had been investigating the claims for 18 months, has also believed that Sir Edward was a pedophile whose crimes were covered up. The police have established that, contrary to the claims, that Sir Edward could not have committed the crimes because he never drove a car and always had a police driver with him. He did drive and once had a car, but the claims have infuriated Sir Edward's godson, who dismissed it as a PR hustle of some sort by the Wiltshire force ahead of an official report into the investigation. Lincoln Siegelman, who has described the probe as a witch hunt, has questioned how police can say the allegations are true just on the basis that they may have driven a car. Yesterday, Mr. Veal said the legal role in the police force is to, on behalf of the public, impartially investigate allegations without fear or favor and go where the evidence takes us. So there's going to be some interesting claims on that. But I know in my past episodes, they were talking about pedophile rings or sex abuse crimes on minors at some of the districts in England. So, and of course, I know I did talk about the hanging of Dan Dix with the pedophiles or human trafficking, including child sex slaves, are being raided almost every part of the world, including Haiti. I remember I did talk about that, and Dan Dix from Press for Truth did that as well. Those are my past episodes. You can look it up. Just look it up, and you'd be surprised. So I'll say this: I believe these things do occur. I'm not going to doubt it. But something like this, you have to have merit to back it up, including in the court. And if this is true, Lord willing, that time comes, a lot of these folks will be stripped naked. It will backfire on them if Sir Edward Heath and his cronies, allegedly, if they actually were involved in these things. Hopefully that's not the case. But one thing for sure, there was plenty of stories on this particular subject matter. But you never know, folks. A lot of filthy people, especially in politics, as a general. A lot of crazies out there. So always pay attention. All right. Finally, this is a little intake. It came from Olson Gunner he wrote for New Eastern Outlook. He's a geopolitical analyst from New York. It says here how a real war on terrorism would look like and why the U.S. isn't fighting one. Since 2001, when the U.S. President George Bush announced his war on terror, presidents, politicians, both the United States and among America's allies, have repeated this phrase and have done their utmost to convince the public that the West was fighting the war on terror. Yet there is something disturbingly ambiguous about what exactly the war on terror consists of, who is also being waged against, and how could it possibly be brought into a successful conclusion. It is often referred to as the Long War, and for good reason. America's ongoing occupation of Afghanistan is the longest armed conflict in U.S. history. Additionally, U.S. troops still find themselves in Iraq some 14 years after the initial invasion and occupation of the state since 2003. Because of the ambiguous nature of the war on terror, politicians have been given much room to maneuver their rhetoric explaining why more wars must be waged, more liberties curtailed at home, and more wealth and power channeled into fewer and fewer hands. What's really behind terrorism? The fanatics, weapons, supplies, vehicles, and finances that grease the wheels of global terror did not merely spring forth from the pages of the Quran, as bigots across the West insist. Just like any national army, the army raised and wielded in the name of terrorism has several basic components. Examining these components reveal a very uncomfortable but somewhat poorly hidden truth. In reality, fanatics must be indoctrinated, and they are. Saudi-funded mandras and mosque networks wrap around the globe in the United States and across Europe. These madrasas and mosques often serve as both indoctrination centers and recruiting stations. They operate as such with the explicit knowledge, even cooperation of the U.S. and European security intelligence agencies. One such center can be found in Denmark at Grimhovedjen Mosque in Aarhus, which openly serves as a recruiting station for militants meant to fight abroad in U.S. European-backed wars in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. The government of Denmark openly collaborates with the mosque to interrogate these individuals back into Danish society when they return. The mosque in Aarhus is hardly an isolated example. Such mosques, backed and protected by U.S., European, and Saudi money and political influence, dot the globe, feeding recruits into a global mercenary army carrying out proxy war and staging terrorist attacks whenever and wherever politically convenient. Both WikiLeaks and the U.S.-owned defense intelligence agencies have released documents exposing both the West and Gulf states, such as Saudi Arabia and Qatar, have played in the arming and funding of actual militants once they reach the battlefield. Additionally, militants have been indoctrinated, trained, armed, funded, and battle-hardened by West and Gulf sponsorship. Return back to their respective nations, where they are then cultivated for domestic operations. Terror attacks like those in Paris and Brussels, Berlin, and elsewhere are carried out almost exclusively by militant U.S. European security and intelligence agencies have known about and even arrested, but inexplicably released, allowing them to carry out their attacks. What a real war on terrorism requires. It is often said that the states like Russia, Syria, and Iran exist as natural allies to the United States and Europe in the fight against terrorism. And what would be true if not the fact that terrorism is actually a deliberate product of U.S. European foreign policy, where the West truly wage a war on terrorism, it would already be deeply cooperating with these nations on the front line against groups like Al-Qaeda and the self-proclaimed Islamic State. How terrorism is waged as a means of the fighting the West's proxy wars abroad, and to create divisive, paralyzed hatred, fear, and hysteria at home. Travel bans are created to intentionally stoke controversy and distract the public from the aforementioned reality driving terrorism. As in evidence in virtually all terror attacks carried out across the West, suspects are already known to security and intelligence agencies beforehand. These agents simply need to stop them. Instead, they allow the attacks to take place, granting their respective government's political capital to channel more power into centralized hands. While the U.S. and Europe use terrorism as a function for foreign policy, they could not do it without the intermediaries in the Persian Gulf, without the Saudis and Qataris serving as handlers for the West terrorist legion. It's exactly such legions could raise to begin with, targeting rather than embracing, even protecting these state sponsors for all aspects of terrorism, from indoctrination and requirement to training, arming, and financing terrorism on the battlefield would be another essential step in the real war on terror. Yet, from President Bush to President Obama and now during the administration of U.S. President Trump, the U.S. and its allies continue to coddle the regimes in Riyadh and Doha, rather than taking any measures whatsoever to disrupt the terror pipeline. While the U.S. remains in Afghanistan allegedly to fight terrorism, it refuses to take even the most basic steps to dismantle the ideological, political, and financial structures in the Persian Gulf, fueling that terrorism. A final means of combating and defeating terrorism would be to educate the public of just how small a minority is actually involved in it, isolating those groups exploiting and perverting the ideologies from the vast majority who practice ideologies constructively. Instead, U.S. and European demagogues work ceaselessly to lump all of Islam into the terror basket, creating tension and hostility on both sides of essentially manufactured strategy of tension. Instead of draining emotional and political resources from those seeking to recruit delusional individuals, the West is ensuring them an endless supply. A real war on terror clearly not being waged. Nothing presented by President Trump before or after his campaign victory in 2016 indicates a real war is about to be waged. In fact, much of what has been done thus far has simply been placing of additional bricks on a very predictable path toward the infinite horizon of this long war. I've been saying this for a long time, my friends. The war on terror is a conflagration or conflict with the people. Whether it's the United States, Canada, Libya, Iran, Qatar, Somalia, Australia, Russia, etc. All a stage. It's really disturbing. Kio bono, who benefits? That's what the new One World Order is about. Using the war on terror. Divide us so the people can be conquered. I'm going to add a video on here as well by Kurt Nemo. And it was really good, and I was very pleased to see it. And NewsBuzz does always do a good job, and you should follow him on Twitter, or you go to newsbuzz.com, but I'm going to definitely add this video of a geopolitical report. I got to bring it up. I want to make sure I got the name addressed accurately. The name. What's it called? So, one moment here. Oh, sorry about that. Well, I did a little yawn there, my friends. It's called Saudi Arabia, the United States, and Special Terror Relationships. I'm going to add that to the memo. You can, folks, check it out yourself. All right? It's very good. I recommend it for everyone to see it, because it has a abundance amount of merit. That's how you win, my friends. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you enlighten yourself, the less you fear, and have the obligation and duty to share with everyone you know. So I'm going to add that to the memo. And that is all for now. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. That includes the rest of my archives. You should go to Spreaker or iHeartRadio, okay? If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting I may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, or Minds.com. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is LokiLuck and the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com. All right, my friends, I'm going to sign off. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. May your guardian spirits be with you.